Madam Clerk.
I received a letter November 14, 2025. Dear Madam Clerk, pursuant to my authority in Section 3-1075 of the Home Rule Charter of the City of New Orleans, there will be a special City Council meeting on the following date, Wednesday, January 28, 2026 at 9 a.m. These meetings will be limited to the discussion and consideration of matters relative to the current financial condition of the city, including without limitation the status of the general fund and any changes to be expected revenue or funding, and ordinance number 30,522, and any other matters that may properly come before the City Council. Please make necessary arrangements to have these special meetings cablecast live on the Government Access Television channel and tape for recasting in the future. Sincerely, J.P. Morrell, President, New Orleans City Council. Roll call. Council President Morrell, Vice President Willard.
Here.
Councilmember McCarron, Councilmember Harris, Councilmember King, Councilmember Green.
Here.
Councilmember Hughes.
Here.
We have 5 members. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Chairwoman Leslie Harris.
Thank you. As usual, we will have the legislative auditor come up and report to us on payroll.
We need to suspend the rules to receive the first report from the legislative auditor.
I'll move to suspend, seconded by Council Vice President Willard. Need one more vote. 5 yeas.
And we need to suspend the rules to add it to the agenda.
I'll move. Councilmember King seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
5 yeas.
We need to suspend the rules to add a second communication from the legislative auditor.
I'll move. Council Vice President Willard seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
And we need to suspend the rules to add.
I'll move. Councilmember Green seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
You could, the legislative auditor, have the floor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Mike Wagesback, Louisiana Legislative Auditor. Today, January 28th, we're here in accordance with the State Bond Commission terms and conditions for the approval of the City of New Orleans $125 million revenue note. And as of today, our preliminary review indicates that the city's request totaling $5,546,487.10 is outlined below for the transfer to the J.P. Morgan account. This amount, the $5,546,487.10, is payable to the Chase payroll card funding account, is for the purposes of funding employee compensation and related employee and employer taxes. So if you go to Summary A, you'll see the breakdown by police and fire, as well as some weekly payroll for the amount just mentioned. Then we have the breakdown by gross earnings on Exhibit B, showing the overtime pay. I'll note that this overtime pay, this particular pay period, is $375,000 less than what they projected to spend, which is a good thing. And on Exhibit C, we have the year-to-date payroll through January 24th, 2026. Gross earnings of roughly $29 million, and overtime pay just over $3 million, which is about 10% of the gross. Exhibit D, of course, we're tracking, and after this payroll processing, we'll have a balance of roughly $13 million, but $12,929,310. We'll note we had a question on an account service fee that we pushed back to City Finance to check with the bank. So that $8,322.35 was a little unusual for this type of account. So having researched that, I think the bank is in the process of reversing that particular error on this account. So we'll have that money, and that'll increase the account by a slight amount. I can touch on if it's appropriate now, I can also touch on the retention payments.
Yeah, hold on for 1 second. Are there any questions about this? Okay. If you will continue on the police retention payments.
Yeah, so we spent a good part of last week and the weekend reviewing all the criteria and those who were eligible for this payment. It's roughly, I think, 800 folks that qualified. And out of the, we identified, there was a total presented to us of $9,516,000. We identified about 6 individuals that did not qualify, so we adjusted that down $57,318.30. We sent those to the Finance Department, HR, they concurred. So after it's all said and done, the gross payroll associated with these retention payments to police and some EMS is $9,458,895.26. So that will be funded as well and will be reflected in their payroll or their checking accounts, I guess, on 30th of this Friday. So their normal pay plus the retention pay will fund this weekend.
And what are the sources of the funds?
The source of the fund is there's going to be a pocket of about $3.5 million from ARPA that's left over in the ARPA account, and the remaining will come from the amount that's escrowed from the Sewage and Water Board receivable. Will be the remainder amount. It's my understanding.
And we're not taking any of the retention pay from the RAND?
No RAND will be used for this.
Okay, so how much going forward do we have left in the RAND? If you could just.
Roughly $13 million.
And so how are we looking on payroll going forward?
We'll utilize it for the next through February 18th. So we're going to use some, approximately $6 million on February 4th, approximately $6 million on February 11th, and there'll be a small remainder of about $776,000 we can use on February 18th.
Okay, and that takes us kind of through Mardi Gras, so we might see increased police overtime.
That's correct.
All right.
Correct.
Do we have a handle on police overtime? CAO Giarrusso, if you want to come on up. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everybody. I think the biggest issue right now with police overtime is that there's a difference, which you discussed publicly, but I think it bears repeating, is that overtime, A, is being treated in a far different manner than it has in the past, primarily with working with the legislative auditor and our team, that there's now structures that have to be followed and things that have to be done. And I think I'm going to look over at them, barring IGR telling me otherwise. My CAO policies ought to be coming out today, including one on overtime, and it is a very detailed list of what has to be done. So that's from a procedural standpoint. The second one is from a money standpoint. Remember what the council did in light of what the administration requested going in was set aside overtime money for NOPD, fire, EMS into the CAO budget. So now for NOPD or anybody else to tap into that, they have to come back to me and my staff and ask for that money. And obviously, as we're planning, we're trying to have an idea of the totality of what it looks like year over year and manage those costs through. And just, you know, by way of example, we are asking all of those questions now, trying to make sure as things happen, we understand the needs for what's happening and trying to control costs as best as possible.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any questions from the dais? Council Vice President Willard.
Thank you. Mr. Wagasback, so you said we have the RAND payments through February 18th?
Yes, sir.
After that, are we confident we'll be able to meet payroll with?
We've been meeting on cash flow. We had a Zoom meeting yesterday, a Teams meeting yesterday, so we're monitoring that. So I think it's going to be tight in February, March, but I think we'll be fine.
Okay, and the idea after that is to make payroll with general fund dollars?
That's correct. That's correct.
And we have those collections coming in right now through property taxes right now?
That's correct.
Okay. We also have to start depositing money into that reserve fund, I think, starting next week. Is that correct?
We'll start making payments. That's correct.
Okay. Can you walk us through kind of how that works? I know there's like a threshold we keep in the general fund. I believe it's $25 million, and then anything above that goes into the reserve fund?
That's correct. And then payments will start making, but it's projected that we'll make a February payment of about $15 million, and in March, $65 million, April, $25 million, and May, $20 million, and that'll pay it out. That'll pay back to $125 million.
Okay, and we're confident we can, because at some point we have to deposit into that reserve fund, but also start paying the bond back.
That's correct.
And we're looking good on that.
We've
right
taken
now?
that all in consideration on a projected cash flow. So far, so good. It appears fine, unless we have some unknown surprise.
Okay, sounds good. Final question. As it relates to the retention bonuses paid to NOPD, I think you said the total will be about $9.4 million.
And that's just payroll only. You also have your pension contribution and payroll taxes on top of that. So they're still working through, they're still pushing that through the system now. that could end up 15 million.
So the reason I brought it up was because I heard it could be benefits associated with that. So it is
Absolutely.
pension and then the payroll taxes.
That's correct.
And so we're looking at possibly that going up to 15
Yeah,
million. in total.
we'll back check and verify that and report on that next week, but they're actually pushing it through ADP now.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll know later, probably later today.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Wagsback.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Any other questions? All right, with that, we have to,
On page 2, item 3, we have resolution R 2664 by Councilmember Harris by request is being withdrawn.
So ordered.
And we have a substitute resolution by Councilmember Harris by request, approving and ratifying the release of $5,546,487.10 from the City of New Orleans Employee Emergency Payroll Fund to cover the cost of payroll-related expenses for employees of the police and fire departments, as well as certain employees paid weekly, for the pay period beginning January 11, 2026, and ending January 24, 2026. The foregoing authorization shall be subject to concurrence by the Louisiana Legislative Auditor in accordance with the City Code 70-415.347D.
all right, I will move to suspend the rules to receive.
No, we've been, voting.
We already
We're
went through
voting
that.
on
All right, I will move to
Oh,
adopt.
no. Voting to suspend the rules.
See? Ah, I was right. I was right. All right.
I'm sorry, I'm
I will
moving
move to
fast.
suspend the rules. Seconded by Councilmember Hughes. I need one more vote. 5 yeas.
Vote to add.
I will move to add. Councilmember King seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
5 yeas.
Vote on the matter.
And I will move to adopt, seconded by Councilmember Hughes. All in favor?
Aye.
5 yeas. Thank you.
At the top of the agenda, item 1, we have motion M26-62 by Council Members Morrell and Hughes by request, directing the City Planning Commission to conduct a public hearing to consider amendments to the ordinance number 4264 MCS as amended, the comprehensive zoning ordinance to amend the comprehensive zoning ordinance to define data centers and any related uses, to consider whether these uses should be permitted or conditional in any zoning district or overlay, and to implement appropriate use and design standards for these uses if applicable, including but not limited to the density requirements, soundproofing, and safety measures, and any other regulation necessary to preserve the right of life of nearby residents, businesses, and institutions as applicable.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilmember Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll go ahead and yield to City Planning Director Rivers. Good morning.
Good morning. We were asked to come and provide some explanation about the current status of data centers, is my understanding.
Yes, correct.
So, sorry, my name is Bob Rivers. I'm the Director of the City Planning Commission. With me is Stephen Kroll, the Planning Administrator for our Land Use Section. Currently, my understanding is that the data center use is not defined in the zoning ordinance. And because it's not defined, it is not something that is permitted anywhere in the city. So the current status is that they are not permitted. I think the chief zoning official looked into this back in December, came up with the opinion that because it's an undefined use, there would need to be a text change in order to permit them anywhere in the city.
All right, thank you very much. This ordinance is being introduced by myself and Council President Morrell. Let me be clear to members of the public. We have heard you loud and clear. Data centers have been in the news a lot lately. There is a proposed data center in District E, which, let me say unequivocally, I staunchly oppose. And so our efforts today with this motion and the subsequent interim zoning district is to ensure that no permit or no data center will be allowed, and that the City Planning Commission can conduct a public hearing, because we've just heard from our executive director that it is their opinion that data centers are not allowed. We seem to think that there is some ambiguity that we want to put to bed one way or the other. And so that is the purpose of this motion today. It is not to allow data centers in any shape, form, or fashion. It is to add a level of safeguard, hearing from the community loudly and clearly. And so with that, are there any public comments? Anyone here wishing to speak?
Councilmember Hughes, I applaud you, and I applaud this effort to analyze and to move in the direction of protecting especially those who have expressed some very valid concerns. This is your district, but it could affect any district. This is a new technology. It has a new impact on communities, but it's important to recognize that, in my opinion, so many people have invested so significantly in an area that is moving in the right direction, off Reed Boulevard in New Orleans East, that I think that this is a very worthy endeavor to undertake, and that for the interest of protecting those who have invested much, this is something very positive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Green. Vice President Willett is recognized.
Thank you, Councilmember Hughes. To the members of the public, I just want to let y'all know, I really appreciate y'all being here and really appreciate your civic advocacy over the last, was this our third week? It's our third week. Over the last 2 weeks, I've received, probably close to 100 emails specifically about this data center in New Orleans East. And I didn't know anything about it until I started to get those emails in. I just want to get on the record and thank you for doing this, Councilmember Hughes. I have serious concerns with data centers. They cost a lot of money to construct and to build, and they create very few permanent, lasting jobs for the communities where they are built. They utilize an abundance of natural resources, including energy consumption and clean water. And at a time where, we deal with saltwater intrusion in the Mississippi River and high utility rates, personally, I don't think that this is the type of project that we want. And we've heard it from all of you here today. This is not something that you want in your backyard, certainly not something that you want in a residential neighborhood. So I just want to thank all of you for showing up today, and I want to thank Councilmember Hughes for introducing this.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I see no further comments from my colleagues at this time. We're going to move to public comment, beginning with Xavier Wilson, followed by Osa Adun.
Is there a timer?
Yes, good morning. If you identify yourself with your name and your address.
Cool. My name is Xavier Wilson. I live at 7019 Crowder Boulevard in New Orleans East. And just to start off, I want to talk on the opinion of the Planning Commission. Having something be undefined means that there's no framework for it. And I think they should revisit that opinion, because there are certain renditions of what we would consider a data center to be already present in the city. So by it being undefined doesn't necessarily mean that it is prohibited, because there was no definition for it. Getting into the meat of everything, framing is important, because adequate city development is crucial for a thriving city. Having public comment on its definition is a step in the right direction. However, we don't answer all of the questions surrounding this type of development. Many other types of development are energy intensive and water intensive, straining our electrical and natural resources. There should be more discussion surrounding energy efficiency within development. The zoning for this particular issue is the simple part. The definition for this particular issue is also another simple part. But what we leave unanswered is, do we as a city support any development that is energy intensive and straining our natural resources? Because until that question is answered, any other development could come about, maybe disguised as an apartment building or a grain elevator or any other sort of exploitative development. The data center is an issue on its own, but is it is representative of a greater question. On the issue of waiving the neighborhood participation program, I believe that should be amended out of the motion, given how we've seen these council debates have left residents with more unanswered questions and more situations to where they need more answers. Because of all of the deferrals and all of the waving things off, we need to amend out the...
Thank you. That is your time. I appreciate you, Mr. Wilson. Osa Adun, followed by Frank Skurlock.
Good morning, Council. My name is Osarum Wategadun. My address is 9217 Apple Street. It is in my opinion that I believe a data center under no circumstances should be allowed in the city of New Orleans. And with this language in the motion set forward, you are paving a pathway for potentially a data center to be developed in the future after the interim zoning district is over, after that one-year moratorium. Let me read the language for you. The City Planning Commission is directed to conduct a public hearing to consider amendments to ordinance number, as amended, the comprehensive zoning ordinance, to amend the comprehensive zoning ordinance to define data centers and any related uses, to consider whether these uses should be permitted or conditional, and any zoning district overlay, any zoning district or overlay, and to implement appropriate use and design standards for these uses if applicable, including but not limited to density requirements, soundproofing, and safety measures, and any other regulation necessary to preserve the quality of life of nearby residents. But the residents have expressed that they don't want data centers in New Orleans, ever. Furthermore, that the requirement to participate in the neighborhood participation program is waived given the additional opportunity for public comment. I don't agree at all with this language in the motion that the neighborhood participation program to be waived. If these developments are going to concur, neighbors need to be informed. That is my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get to the next one, Mr. McNamara, come on down for a second. I apologize for my tardiness. I was dealing with some issues regarding some legislation that's going down here. I think that there's a tremendous amount of misinformation that's circulating around this issue. The purpose of the comprehensive zoning ordinance, the purpose of the IZD is that currently, because a data center is not defined in law, we have individuals like the one we're talking about in New Orleans East, which, as I recall, it is the opinion Mr. McNamara was for, I believe, office space with computer-related resources. The reason why you have to do this is in order to ban data centers, you have to define them. And I know Mr. McNamara, Mr. McNamara is going to introduce himself and say what he does, but when you don't define an item, you allow for loopholes for them to attempt to exist. So can you give us an example of one data center attempt you blocked and how you weren't aware of the current one that's going forward?
That's correct, and thank you, and good morning to the council. Honored here before this brand new council. My name is Dan McNamara. I'm the Chief Zoning Official for the City of New Orleans. And to your point, Councilmember Morell, there were discussions regarding a data center specifically described as such that was interested in operating in one of two locations. One of those locations was in our first skyscraper here in the City of New Orleans, as well as an alternate site. And at that point in time, it was my opinion that because there was no data center defined in the code, then that use was not a permitted use in the City of New Orleans. And I advised the people that we were in those discussions with as to that. Again, this one popped up, the one that has, I think, caused all the concern for the council and for the citizens in the East, and perhaps across the City of New Orleans, was regarding this application that they described themselves as an office space with computers. I think that and there was a zoning verification that said an office use was a permitted use. I think that there's probably two issues there. One was probably deserved a little bit more careful scrutiny on the part of the Department of Safety and Permits, but also the fact that there probably was not a fully described intent of what they wanted to use that property for. And I think that, again, goes to your point as to we're going to try to find ways to pigeonhole certain uses in there that are not fully descriptive of the activities that people are trying to take place.
And just so y'all know, Mr. McNamara was heavily involved, more so than he'd like, with the STR, ridiculous amounts of STR legislation we had. And the problem you had is that when you don't define something and people then begin to operate under nebulous zoning to do something that we don't want, then it becomes an issue of they get a vested right where they say, well, I have an office space with computers in it that happens to be a data center, and then if we change the law after the fact, Mr. McNamara, doesn't that create a position where if a data center is able to slip in under some kind of zoning variance that we don't catch, that then they have an argument that they're allowed to operate?
They certainly could advance an argument that they have at that point obtained some kind of property right to do that, have that use on that location.
So just because I know I've watched some of these videos, and people are definitely entitled to their opinions, but not their own set of facts. The fact is, IZDs exist for this specific purpose, which is to stop a type of zoning while we figure out what to do with it, correct?
And that's correct, and that has taken place, as council's fully aware, in the realm of short-term rentals. There's currently one in place right now regarding that, and that is that sets forth the conditions. Either, it could put a ban until we get certain legislation in effect, or set other conditions while we're doing that. And that took place, as we're all familiar, when the court ordered us to amend our STR regulations on a truncated timeline. I mean, we also had the TRO in place, but those things can be put in place, the IZDs, to stop those kind of things until the council's been able to act.
Right, and just for everyone's memory, we did an IZD for 2 years, with 2 or 3 years on commercial short-term rentals. We have done a subsequent one dealing with transient lodging. But the difference there and the opportunity we have here is we were trying to put toothpaste back in the tube with commercial short-term rentals. Since we had not specifically defined and banned them, several of them began to operate, several of them continue to operate. We put the IZD in place to prevent additional commercial short-term rentals, but seldom do you see an opportunity like this council is doing to get ahead of the issue, say we see the problem coming down the line, and we want to make it clear to all parties that until we figure out what the hell a data center is in the law, because we have to define it for the city to take a position on it, we are clearly stating that any effort, whether if it's a commercial building with computers, which for me is a Best Buy, not a data center, whether it's a computer repair shop, under whatever definition you put out there, data centers are not permitted, nor, I want to also highlight, we're also talking about crypto mining facilities. For those of you who are not familiar, they are as bad as data centers, if not worse, because the health issues that they are creating in the state of Texas right now for these massive crypto mining facilities, the damage they do to the health of the communities where they're located, I am very concerned that if we don't get ahead of these things, define them and block them, we will be in the same place we are with CSTRs, like poor Dan had to do with CSTRs and STRs, which is once people get a vested property right, once very well-funded groups get a vested property right, then we're in federal litigation 4 years trying to block something that's already there. And I would prefer, working with Representative Hughes, to say, this is not something we want. We need to define it in a way that covers everything and is not too specific, because as you saw with the instance we have now, when Mr. McNamara said, this is obviously a data center that's not allowed under ordinance. No, somebody came back with an office space with computers. And like I said, I want to address the misinformation that's being put out there because the IZD clearly states it's there to prohibit these type of facilities. Now, as far as the MPPs, we're talking about, as I understand it, Mr. Rivers, this is dealing with getting city planning to start looking at it. This is not waiving NPPs for new data centers. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose is to try and get CPC moving as quickly as possible to work to figure out how to define data centers, correct? And Bitcoin mining facilities.
So, as it's worded right now, yes, we would be able to go ahead and docket it and get it on our agenda within the next probably 2 months.
Right. So the goal is we want to move quickly on defining this to block this. I can only speak for myself, but I've spoken to many of my colleagues. We are a landlocked city. We have limited land. We have very little industrial space. These facilities, whether it's a Bitcoin mine or a data center, the Bitcoin mines are devastating to public health. The data centers have tremendous effects on water availability and damaging the grid. We are not a sprawling 700-mile parish. We're New Orleans. If you put any of that stuff in this parish, it is going to detrimentally affect the livelihoods of people. So, like I said, Mr. Scurlock, I know you're next, but the purpose of today, and I really want to speak to this because I've seen some people who are influencers kind of alluding to the fact that council is somehow in cahoots or trying to move with data centers. We are doing the opposite, and that is spelled out in black and white, that we are trying to make sure that this kind of thing isn't happening and that we are going to create a process to actively prohibit it. Mr. Scurlock.
Hi, I'm Frank Scurlock. My address is 7816 Breakwater Drive, and proud to be 63 years young and proud to be born at Baptist. On that day that I was born at Baptist Hospital back in 1962, my father, John Scurlock, was actually a technical engineer for Boeing. At that time, he was working at the Michoud Assembly Facility. It's true. He got the call that my mother was in labor, and in carpool those days, because people shared, they took him to Baptist to basically meet me being born. So why did I say that? My father was also a professor at Tulane. Prior to that, he was at Centenary. Prior to that, he was at Texas A&M as a freshman teaching seniors physics. That's education. That's applying yourself. Our school, our city, how many universities do we have here? Is it 5? Is it 7? I just came back from a month-long trip for this city's benefit to the state of California. I stopped in Cupertino. I went to the Apple mothership. You know, if you have a chance to go see what technology does, attracts wealth, attracts investors, attracts prosperity, but most importantly, it attracts the people with real paying jobs that this city, thank goodness our state stepped up to bail out our city. We need revenue. And if we don't put something substantial to bring in real educated people with real money to buy property, to pay taxes, we're not going to get out of the debts that we have. It's a simple equation. My suggestion is very simple. Consider the business corridor in New Orleans East. Every time I pass by it, whatever the New Orleans East business thing is, there's 6 feet high weeds on top of the sign. Why don't we restrict it to an area that it's needed? You cannot go to space without stopping at the Michoud Assembly Facility. You can't do it. One of the reasons why I was in California, I'm trying to recruit SpaceX, Elon Musk's team, to actually make a capital investment. I probably shouldn't have said that, but I care more about the city than I do.
Thank you, Mr. Scurlock. Gregory Swafford, followed by John Brown.
Thank you, Council, for stating your position and clarifying some misunderstandings around some of the content that's been put out.
Can you just identify yourself for the record, please?
My name is Gregory N. Swafford. My address is 2620 New York Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm here to clarify the invisible infrastructure costs associated with data centers, just for the public record. Research and public reporting states such as Virginia, Texas, and California show that infrastructure costs from data centers, particularly related to water systems, our electrical grids, and stormwater capacity, are often absorbed by municipal systems rather than by the operators themselves. These impacts include increased demand on drainage and stormwater infrastructure, added load on our electrical grid, and long-term maintenance burdens placed on public agencies. So those costs don't disappear. They're transferred to, or would be transferred to, New Orleans ratepayers and future city budgets. My purpose today is not to argue for or against a specific project, but to ensure the public record clearly reflects what zoning decisions consider and what they do not before additional approvals are evaluated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. John Brown, followed by J.D. Career.
Good morning. How y'all doing? My name John Brown. I live at 7411 Westgate Road, which is located in the east on Reed exit, which is approximately like a block away from where this data center we speak of. I'm not for or against it, but we don't have enough data. First of all, most data centers take up a lot of energy and water. We already having problems with energy and sewage and water board, and like in my area, I don't know about y'all's, but that's just something we should have energy and sewage and water board to come talk to people about and ensure, if they can, what type of data centers are there? There are like 9 different types. So the thing is this motion allotted for a certain amount of time that we can't have data centers, or like this is just questions I have. There are 9 types. They all have high maintenance. They all have unpredictable long-term costs. They all take up massive water and power usage, and they also have high environmental impact. There are 2 data centers I looked up in New Orleans currently that I find on my phone. One named Fogo Data Centers and another one named Cogent Data Centers, which both have websites. They both have a lot of stuff, but they don't tell people what exactly it's doing to the community or the environment. So, you know, whenever these meetings are, like, let's have some people, even a man who's proposing to put it here. We don't know if he's proposing or he's asking for a zone change or a zone verification, but we need some more information. But I appreciate everything everybody's doing, especially Mr. Hughes, who's in the east. And looks like my time's running out, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Before we get to JD, real quick, I think one of those questions I think is appropriate, and I think that Mr. Rivers can answer it. The process that starts with the council requesting CPC to study it, could you explain how that process goes forth and how that after the report is generated, there's actually a huge public comment period after the staff generates the report, correct?
Sure. So there's 2 items that were introduced. One is an IZD, one is a zoning docket, and they're going to go forward in parallel. The difference is that the IZD takes effect immediately. So there's an immediate moratorium on the use while we as the City Planning Commission and you all as the council consider the zoning docket. The zoning docket, we will we'll do our research, prepare a staff report, present that to the commission. That's a meeting that will be a public meeting, probably around 2 months from now. The commission will make recommendations, transmit those to the council, and the council will act according to its own schedule. So, and then there will be an ordinance in place that lays out the groundwork for this use going forward.
So just to be clear to the point of Mr. Brown, correct? Mr. Brown, to your point, there will be multiple opportunities for public meetings. Once CPC generates the report saying this is what data centers are and how they would impact us and what the zoning is, there will be an opportunity at CPC first to weigh in on that report, which will be publicly available. And then once that report's transmitted to the council will then have additional public meetings where the public would see all the information and weigh in on the report and provide additional input before we'd ever do an ordinance. The important part regarding the IZD is that it goes in effect immediately. And the first time it'll be for a 1-year period, which the council can renew, which means that in that period, there will be no data centers or Bitcoin mines or anything like that, because the city is actively telling everyone, we are looking at this, and until we make a decision on it, it cannot happen. So I just wanted to answer your questions because they were very specific, and I knew we had the team here to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. J.D. Career, followed by Terrence Giles.
Hello, J.D. Career, 3700 block of Gentilly Boulevard. I would just like to implore the City Planning Commission and the council that we are being very specific with language, especially like when it comes to like esports centers that could easily fall under an office space with computers. I think that there's we see a lot of these issues specifically when we talk about gaming and gambling and how that language has made things difficult. So a esports center would fit all the criteria of a data center, a Bitcoin mine center, just simply on face value, right, when it comes to the hardware inside a machine. So I definitely will volunteer any sort of volunteer or whatever services if we need help with that language. Thanks.
Thank you. Terrence Giles, followed by Michael Pillay.
How y'all doing? I'm Terrence Giles. I live in the East. My address is 5440 Grand Bayou Drive, and I'm with the Party of Socialism and Liberation. I just want to say that the East has, ever since Katrina, has been a neglected community. I don't think we should cede any ground to any idea of a data center. If you guys want to talk about that, me and my group, we're doing a town hall Saturday, January 31st at 2:30 at New Orleans Library. Anybody in the audience, I would encourage you guys to come to the meeting. Thank you.
What time?
2:30, January 31st.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael Pillay, followed by Dawn Hebert.
Called it Michael Pillay.
Called him by his official name. I wanted people to know he's known by things.
I'm trying not
other
to
than
take up
Sage.
my 2 minutes on joking with y'all about that part right there. I'm trying to get straight to my script. I appreciate the council for stepping in to bring in stronger local controls to industries that seem to push the bar when coming to our community. That matters, and it shows that New Orleans is serious about doing growth the right way. I'm also thankful for proactive measures this council is taking, and I agree with Councilman J.P. Morrell that short-term rentals are a good example of why setting clear rules early is better than reacting after problems show up. As this council has already said, this is about leading before decisions are locked in. This is about making sure the framework is in place before projects move forward. A lot of people already know the concerns: energy use, water use, strain on infrastructure, avoiding of paying property taxes, and these things are real issues. What I want to focus on how we move forward. New Orleans wants to be a good place to do business. We want investment, we want innovation, and we want jobs. But we've learned from experience that when industries come in before clear rules are in place, the city and community end up reacting instead of leading. We saw that with short-term rentals. We're still dealing with ride shares, and Uber still owing the city money. This is a chance to do it differently. Doing things differently means keeping advocates and council engaged, not just during procedural meetings, but in between them as well, as mentioned. So as community voices and real-world concerns are a part of the process, let's make sure that's engaged. That means setting clear local standards first around energy and everything that matters. And it also means being intentional about what's coming. Good tech, as JG just mentioned, there are good tech that could develop workforce that can invest in our youth that we must make those clear languages about so we don't run away clear high-tech industries that develop us that don't make an impact in our environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Dawn Hebert.
Thank you. My name is Dawn Hebert. My address is 6846 Lake Willow Drive. First, I want to welcome all of our council members, those that were reelected and our new ones. We are definitely happy what has happened. But I'm really happy that you all addressed this issue so immediately, because this is something that the community is definitely against. At the NPP meeting, Mr. Ramsey held, not one person in the room was for this project. I want the community to know, too, that if the zoning and change, like has been said here, anything could pop up on that particular property, and that a portion of it is zoned for single-family housing. I'm not going to go over what we have been talking about so far about the energy, the water, the noise, this would definitely enter that residential neighborhood that adjourns this particular property. So I want to mention too that with the data center interim zoning district, that I'm hoping when you do have the public hearing that everyone requests that this goes on for a period of more than 1 year. Because this is something that the New Orleans East does not want, but there are other areas in the East I want to say far away from residential properties this could probably come to. Also, a question that we're all having is that the website for this particular project is not accessible, nor can you access the phone number. So where is Mr. Ramsey in the room so that he can answer some questions if this project was so important to him? I guess not. But I want to close by saying thank you so much for addressing this so quickly. And I'm looking forward to New Orleans East and what we can and cannot do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert.
Before I go to the next person, I just want to ask a clarification question, just so everyone knows. The IZD also prohibits the issuance of occupational licenses as well, correct?
As I've looked at it, it prohibits the occupational license for business and any other applications for permits or licenses or issue any permits. So that would cover everything. That would cover the building permits, the occupational license, and those things. If I may just very quickly to Ms. Hebert's point, which I first became aware of this last Thursday when I was watching Ms. Hebert being interviewed on the news, and I thank her for her participation. We are reviewing the zoning verification that was issued with an eye towards revising that as well. So this is, I just wanted the council to be aware of that, to put a fine point on what you're doing and what we're doing relative to this specific application.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are no other public comments here. We do have several online comments. I am going to ask our amazing staff to submit those into the public record. The board appears to be clear from my colleagues. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just say a couple things in closing before we take this vote. In terms of public participation, I pride myself on public participation, and anybody who knows me knows that. And I will ensure that members of District E will have an opportunity to weigh in throughout this process via meetings that me and my team will organize for our residents. I value the input from our residents. At the end of the day, you elected me to be your voice. I intend to be that voice today, and I intend to be that voice over the next 4 years. As Mr. Xavier said, and as our council president clarified and verified so adeptly, ladies and gentlemen, there are currently no definitions around data centers. So anybody can render an opinion on what they think should or should not happen. But absent a definition, an opinion is irrelevant. And so having these definitions will give the extra layer of protection that our residents are hungry for and that our city deserves. And finally, let me just say, with all due respect, I know this is only week 3 for me on the council, but in a previous life, I actually served as a member of the New Orleans City Planning Commission. In fact, I was appointed twice. I was a rank and file member, I was a vice chair, and I actually chaired the New Orleans City Planning Commission. So land use and zoning is something that I understand very, 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 very well. And as a former member of the New Orleans City Planning Commission, if for one reason I thought we did not need this, or if I thought this would not protect the public, myself and the council president, I can assure you, would not be doing this today. I've lived in New Orleans East for over 4 decades. Like many of my residents, I chose to rebuild after Katrina. I'm vested in that community. I love that community. I'm not going anywhere like each of you. And with every fiber of my being, I will fight and give it my all to protect that community. So at the end of the day, this is a major first step in not only protecting New Orleans East, but protecting the character of all of our neighborhoods throughout the city of New Orleans. With that, I thank the partnership and leadership of the council president. I thank the partnership and leadership of my council colleagues. and I thank the extraordinary advocacy of our amazing residents of New Orleans East District E in the city of New Orleans. With that, I move adoption of this motion. Second by President Morrell. Members, please vote your machines. 6 yeas, no nays. That motion is adopted.
Item 2, we have motion M26-63 by Council Members Morrell and Hughes by request, directing the City Planning Commission to conduct a public hearing and make recommendations regarding whether to amend Article 19 of the CZO to establish a new interim zoning district to be named the Data Center Interim Zoning District for the purpose of prohibiting the issuance of any occupational license or other permits the operation of the data center citywide for a period of 1 year from the date of this motion, subject to the extension to provide by Section 3-126 of the City Charter.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we proceed to public comment, I want to be clear, and I want to reiterate what our Council President has already stated. Ladies and gentlemen, what this interim zoning district does, it puts an immediate moratorium on data centers within the city of New Orleans. To the residents in New Orleans East who are concerned about the current application making its way through the process relative to the proposed data center on Plainfield, this would put an immediate halt to that. Absent this interim zoning district, it is a possibility that that proposed data center would become a reality. So that is the purpose of this. I will yield to our esteemed Council President Morrell.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, this also prohibits server farms and the crypto mining operations I discussed previously. Because, I mean, though it's called the Data Center District, it covers all the things we previously discussed, because it is evident that technology, once again, is moving faster than cities can legislate, and we are certainly trying to get ahead of things. I do want to emphasize that, as Councilmember Hughes previously said, I appreciate the residents of New Orleans East going and calling out the fact that property was intended to be a data center, because had they not, the way that it was being presented to the city was not a data center. So had the residents not uncovered in that NPP meeting that it was a data center, it might have slipped through the cracks. Now, we as a council, and I said I previously mentioned a Gambit article that happened right before we got inaugurated, we were aware that this was a problem, but even we did not comprehend how quickly parties were moving to try and get that done. So as a city, we want to be intentional. We welcome technology, welcome investment, but we do not welcome being an experimental staging ground for new technology, especially when our water is precious. We have, as a city, as a parish, so little land that is developable, that we can develop. And to have any of that land go to a purpose, especially when most of that land is adjacent or in the near vicinity of neighborhoods, we have to be very careful with how we authorize these things. So we want to be intentional. This whole process is about being intentional. There's a question about, can we go longer than a year? We've done that historically. If CPC comes back with a report, the residents or the council have additional questions, we can send that back to CPC again and continue to try and develop and fix that process. So to be clear, we're not in a rush to create some data center legislation, nor do we have to be when the IZD is in place. But without an IZD in place, very bad things can happen. Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilman Green is recognized.
I just wanted to emphasize that my District D does include some of New Orleans East, the Malia community. But to residents of District D who've asked me about this, who aren't in the Malia community and New Orleans East, I just want to, along Diamond Road, I just want to let you know that this is an important issue for Gentilly, for the lakefront, for the fairgrounds, for other areas that are included in my district, and I know that fellow council members will agree with me. I just want to encourage the members of the public, though you've heard the East New Orleans mentioned a lot, that this is a matter that affects the entire city, and I encourage you to participate. I will be sharing information, as I know fellow council members will in some way or the other, on meetings that take place relative to this very, very important issue. But I want to encourage citywide participation in the meetings. That's all.
Thank you, Councilmember Green. We'll now go to public comment. Gregory Swafford, if anyone wants to waive, just let me know, followed by Osa Adun. Waving, okay. Mr. Adun? Mr. Adun will be followed by Mr. Larry Morgan.
Thank you, Council, for the explanation. I just want to be very clear, especially for the record, that I'm not opposed to the logic that you presented in your prior arguments about establishing the definition of a data center. However, I am opposed to the language that is aforementioned in this motion. And in this language for the motion, you say that you describe in the appeal process for if somebody wanted to develop a data center in the future after the interim zoning district. You ask these questions. Is the requested appeal compatible with the surrounding land uses and structures? Does the requested appeal provide for efficient land use? We know that not to be efficient, just look at the nation around. Will the requested appeal increase community, environmental, and quality of life impacts? I can't look at any examples around the United States to see if that's ever been the case. 4, does the requested appeal provide appropriate health safeguards for neighboring or nearby properties, including but not limited to soundproofing measures and other safety best practices? I've never seen that before, and I'm sure you never have. Furthermore, like I said, I'm not appealed to the logic. I'm just appealed to the language in this motion, and that's why I don't want you to pass it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Before we go to the next person, I want to clarify for everyone. That language is required by the Charter of the City of New Orleans. Whenever we create an IZD, we have to additionally create an appeals process that would require the appeal to come to the City Council for all of you to weigh in. So though that language might not be discernible to a layperson, that language for an appeal is required by the city charter. So we have to put language in, we have to outline an appeals process. Whether or not the council would ever grant an appeal would require the parties requesting the appeal to go, CPC, correct? CPC, they go to y'all for the appeal. They ultimately come to the council, and you as the public get to weigh in with the council as to whether the appeal is granted. So like I said, though the language may seem kind of cumbersome, it is required by the charter when you do an IZD that you have to put the appeal language in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next, we have Mr. Larry Morgan. Mr. Morgan here? If not, we have, oh, thank you, Mr. Morgan. And followed by Mr. Morgan will be Angel Bradford Rosenberg. Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Morgan.
Good morning to the council and everybody in the house. I must submit and give recognition to Councilman, I can't think of his name, I'm seeing to be slipper.
Morrell.
A great percentage of what he addressed, J.P. Morrell, what he addressed is reality. And also I must comment, this fellow here, I don't know his name, he speaks well for security for the city. And also I want you to know those counts, those data centers, I've been keeping up with them. One thing that we always seem to bypass us, what about the towers? The towers, some of them consist of material of electrical parts that cause cancer. Because I have read it where it happened in 3 states where the tower that was related to the data center was causing cancer. But this is what I'm saying. Always remember, priority and obligation for your council is, number 1, public safety and our safety. Secure that. Many companies is going to come into the city. It's going to try to push many things over on y'all. But look, we have the finest university in the country. We have Xavier, Dillard, Southern, and all that. There are people that are qualified to do our research for us before we involve ourselves in any of these crises or company that these people from out of town want to put into our city. Use our people. We're not dumb, but y'all act like it because the reason is y'all calling other people from other city. We are smart. And Councilman,
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Thank you so much, Mr. Morgan. Angel Bradford Rosenberg, followed by John Brown.
Great. Angel Bradford Rosenberg, 1822 Urquhart Street, New Orleans, Louisiana, 70116. I'm speaking on my behalf, and then also Sierra Club Delta chapter. I'm a volunteer with the organization and leader. I do understand the need, like I do want to be super clear that we understand the tension and the need around defining a data center, and I understand the modern definition is not, or the actual definition is not defined in the ordinance for the city. However, for us, there is concern around the way that this was done, and so I think that's why you're getting a lot of confusion on the public's end, but also confusion around the appeals process still remains. I understand it's required by law, but why not, instead of doing the IZD, just do recommendations from the City Planning Commission? There's plenty of research already out there about data centers. There's plenty of organizations that we work with that already clarify that data centers are not economic development, and just have a ban. It seems like having that appeals process and expecting us to engage with every single application around data centers is the same as just keeping the definition or lack thereof as is on the current ordinance and then waiting for a lawsuit. It seems like the same thing. So it doesn't seem like the motions are that urgent and necessary.
Thank you. Ms. Bradford, let me ask you a question. You and I did have the opportunity to engage in a 20-minute colloquy on yesterday. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay. Did the Sierra Club execute any communication to members of the public or engage with members of the public in any way on this data center?
Yes, so we have engaged with the public, and I personally reached out to Mr. Ramsey in December trying to find out more information.
Yeah, so I'm going to say with all due respect, and normally, you know, I just let the public comment period take its course.
Yep.
But, you know, you said there's a lot of confusion in the public. I'm going to say respectfully, I think your organization has really created...
We disagree with you.
Ma'am. Let me
It's
finish.
not confusion, it's
Ma'am,
disagreement.
Ma'am,
I disagree
I
with you.
did not interrupt you. My mother and my father raised me to be respectful.
You disagree. You
So,
interrupted
ma'am,
my
you
2
can't
minutes,
interrupt
actually.
me. Or you were finished speaking. Were you not?
I wasn't finished speaking.
Okay, go
but
ahead. I apologize. I'll
You
let
can go ahead since you've already interrupted my momentum.
Okay,
so go ahead.
well, we'll give you your minute back, yet another minute. But you're speaking of the confusion amongst the public. And I've gotten several calls yesterday from constituents that were really confused, that were armed with misinformation. And 95% of them said, I had interaction with, communication with, or received information from the Sierra Club. So the confusion that you speak of today, with all due respect, is confusion that your organization created.
You don't have to say with all due respect. I clarified for you why I disagree with the motion. I think the appeals process is a backdoor for data centers. And it's not a ban on data centers. It's an appeals process where you're actually creating criteria where data centers could be useful. And I am telling you, coming just from a convening in Tucson, Arizona with the No Desert Data Center Coalition, that data centers are not economic development. So why not do a ban based on the City Planning Commission's recommendations? Those are my comments.
Thank you very much.
Just to respond before the next person comes up. Number one, like I said, I know this can seem very confusing, but the city can actually not do zoning before CPC reviews and makes a recommendation. Mr. Rivers, how long does it take for y'all to analyze a process and make a recommendation, typically?
So usually we're required to have something on the docket within 50 days.
50 days. And then you look at it and then you make a recommendation to us, correct?
Correct.
So typically speaking, can the city council on its own in a legally defensible way ban zoning?
So the issue is that during the time it takes for us to do our research, for you to do your deliberations, there's going to be a period of 4 or 5 months. During that time, anybody could apply for a quote-unquote data center in whatever form and vest their rights to pursue with that application. So the IZD cuts that off immediately.
Well, but to address your points directly, because I think this is the misinformation we're talking about, the council cannot sua sponte go, we're banning something. There's a deliberative process required by law where we have to wait, publicly advertise, and receive information. The IZD exists because in that deliberative period, we're saying no one can do anything. That appeals language is required by charter. You keep saying backdoor. There's no way, Mr. Rivers, you can speak to this. If someone wants to appeal this IZD, wouldn't they have to come to a public council meeting and go to a public CPC meeting to request that appeal?
So typically the CPC is going to be a staff recommendation directly to the council. So there will be public meetings at the council level. If you want to put it to the CPC itself, you can put that language in the IZD motion itself.
But currently it would come to the council.
It would come to the council, absolutely.
So when you keep saying back door, there is no back door. There's only a front door. If someone wants,
You can still say yes to that data center in that process.
Well, first off, and I appreciate you're not an elected official, don't know how this works.
I do know how this works.
The
I've
city
engaged with
council
all of
as
you
a
for multiple
deliberative,
years.
the city council as a deliberative body cannot publicly prejudge an item and say, I am going to block everything, because Mr. Rivers, what would happen in court if we were to do that?
Well, you said it yourself. It's prejudging, and the decision has to be made.
The merit.
Planning Commission.
So if we have to create appeals process by law, and we have to consider an appeal by law, because if we don't, we are.
You're not conflicting what I'm saying.
I am 100%.
They can do the appeals process, and you can still say yes. So you're not stopping data centers, you're delaying.
Currently.
Yeah, currently that's still an option, but there's no difference between delaying it and what you're offering right now.
Madam, you are being obstinate and not listening to
Yeah,
facts.
because you guys are being jerks, so I don't need to stand here and deal with it. Thank you.
Mr. Rivers, the previous zoning for the office building would not have come to the council, correct?
If basically what they were asking for, is there a way to do this by right?
Right.
So they were looking for a determination where they didn't have to go to any public hearing.
Right. So the existing process where someone could say something is an office building with computer center could in fact have happened, and but for the residents of New Orleans East exposing it was a data center and had that information not brought to CPC, it would not have come to the council as a matter of right if it had been approved, correct? Pending an appeal.
Well, there was in this particular case, the property is zoned residential, or half of it is, so there would be a process around the rezoning, but as to the issue of the data center, you're correct.
And even if it had been an appeal and it had been looked at properly, it would still come to the council for the same public hearing that this appeals process would have created.
Correct.
So I'm trying to understand, when someone keeps saying backdoor, they seem to be telling the public this is some new process that makes it easier to have a data center. What we're creating is that there is an IZD that prohibits the issuance of any kind of permit for anything resembling a data center. And that if someone wants to make the argument that they would like to pursue a data center, it would have to come to the council for the public to opine in for a vote.
Yes, any land use decision has to go through a legislative process. Any legislative process can be a yay or a nay, and
which is the legislative process.
It is the legislative.
So I am sorry if I seem a little incredulous, but the minority report argument that someone has seen into the future and that the council is going to automatically approve every data center, when from the commentary of the council individually, from the commentary today, it does not reflect that. It seems that this is a solution in search of a problem, that the council is somehow obviously in support of data centers. The fact the IZD is being proposed today to slow down and bring transparency to that process directly contradicts that argument. As I said previously, you're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own set of facts. The facts do not align with the supposition that was presented today. Thank you, Mr. Rivers.
Thank you, Mr. President. John Brown, followed by Ryan Hancock.
Hello, I'm John Brown, back again. So Mr. Morrell, I believe his name is, he did make a good point as to there being beneficial things that might seem like a data center, and, you know, people might be against it, but it may not be. But I want to bring a question to some people and ask, do they know if there are 2 data centers currently about a mile from here? Cogent, C-O-G-E-N-T, you can look them up, and Fogo, F-O-G-O, 935 Gravier Street, 650 Poydras Street. And let me just read you a little information from their website. Cogent is one of the world's largest internet service providers, delivering high-quality internet, Ethernet, and co-location services. And if you don't know what co-location is, it's one of the types of data centers that are being built. So, across over 118,279 enterprises and net-centric customer connections, Cogent serves over 302 markets in 57 countries across its facilities based all optical. And these places are a mile from here. So, not saying like what they are, but somehow these places have popped up and nobody like really seems to know about them. And they're here. You could check their website, cogentco.com. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ryan Hancock, followed by Jonathan Anthony Roberts, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing anyone's name.
How you all doing? Thank you, Jason, Councilman Hughes, for pronouncing my name right, because nobody in New Orleans ever pronounced my name right. I was named for Ryan Sandberg, rest in power. But that's not why I'm here today, because I'm not here to crack jokes. I'm here to talk business. Many times, you guys know, a lot of things come into our city, and we don't know these things until it happens. And I support having a public hearing and making recommendations for this interim zoning district, because the public, we are the public. You know, you guys, we elected you guys into office. You guys work for us, and we should be in collaboration with each other on the future of our city, what can go in our city, what cannot go in our city. Because if we don't do something, if we just let this data center fall into our city, guess what? You know, our city will suffer. Because, again, as you all said, we're not a big city. You know, I'm from Memphis. Memphis is about 26, 27 square miles. This is a city that's maybe 9 miles, I think. So I support having a public hearing, and whenever you all have that public hearing, I will be there. And just look for, as I always tell y'all, just look for the man with the Kansas City Royals hat. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jonathan Anthony Roberts, followed by Chris Lang. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, City Council members, City Council President Morrell, Vice President Willard, and the rest of the council members. We know the impacts of data centers in our communities, worldwide or United States wide. We just had examples of possible data centers right here in our own backyard already. I'm not opposed to the interim, but the interim zoning district is only a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid for a short-term solution. I would like to know what's the long-term solution that the City Council is proposing to protect our communities, to protect our most vulnerable population, and to protect our environment. We talked about saltwater intrusion. We talked about the mitigation of green space throughout District E. We've seen it inside the Lower 9. We see it inside the East. We see it throughout the Gentilly area and throughout all of New Orleans. My concern is that we're living inside a time where everything is fighting for our attention, and our public is inundated by misinformation and disinformation. So what is the council doing to properly educate the community, make sure that the community is properly engaged in every step of the process, and that the community is properly being heard throughout the entire process and not being pushed to the side or over-inundated with information that does not benefit the general public? Thank you for the Band-Aid, but it's just a Band-Aid, and what's the long-term fix to protect our most vulnerable population and to protect our environment? Jonathan Anthony Roberts, for the record, address is 4928 Chrysler Street, New Orleans East. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chris Lang, followed by Edith Romero.
Good morning, Council. My name is Chris Lang. I live at 2500 Dauphine Street. I know of several of you from my former employment with the city as the Circular Economy Program and Policy Manager, which ended 2 weeks ago with the mayoral transition. I'm here to speak on the data center and the IZD. I'm just curious in terms of the length of the IZD. Why did we land on a year? If we want to have a short-term solution for maybe a year-long moratorium, why can't we extend that to be 5 years or 15 years or 20 years? It may not be interim, but that seems like it could at least offset as much dissidence or as many appeals that could happen after that year expires, when there's less public scrutiny around the data centers, when there's an opportunity for sort of backdoor deals to happen to enable a data center to exist. That, I think, is, I'm hearing, aside from the gentleman with the red cap, there's pretty much unanimous consent here that nobody wants to see a data center in New Orleans, and I appreciate some of the thoughts that were stated around we need to get this IZD in place, and the definitions in place, but why can't we extend that to be a 5-year process rather than a 1-year moratorium? That's my question for y'all. And I also second what Ms. Angel said in terms of if we can get that ban through legislature as quick as we can, that would be the best thing we could do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Just to clarify, and you raise a great question for the record, so I'm going to ask Mr. Rivers to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think under the law, an interim zoning district can't exceed a year. Is that accurate? But we can renew the interim zoning district after that year expires?
That is correct. The initial term would be a year, and the council can extend it up to 2 6-month periods. So the total could be 2 years. And the theory is that it's buying time basically to give the legislative process the opportunity to work to put a permanent solution in place.
Great. Thank you. Edith Romero, followed by Dawn Hebert.
Hello.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Edith Romero. I live in 1918 General Taylor Street. I'm part of Ion Surveillance, and I'm also a Honduran immigrant. This topic is really close to me because we also have data centers over there that are destroying our cities. And also tech billionaires that are building charter cities to displace our Afro-descendant communities. I want to thank you because you've all expressed opposition to data centers, and that is where I stand. You've mentioned all the harms that come with data centers. And I want to thank Councilmember JP Morrell especially, because this is the right stance, the stance that will protect our communities. I echo the speakers before me that we need a long-term solution, and I encourage City Council to work with other districts that are facing the same threat and that are getting long-term solutions and bans on data centers. Unfortunately, we have a history with Ion Surveillance of City Council being in the right position with our ban in 2020, but then amending the ban 2 years later to allow facial recognition use. And so there are reasons to distrust, unfortunately, but I applaud you for the position today, and I look forward to working towards a long-term ban on data centers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dawn Hebert.
Dawn Hebert, president of Enonoc, 6846 Lake Willow Drive. I'm not going to repeat what I said before, but now I have a question. It appears as though Mr. Ramsey wasn't exact enough with his application to the CPC. Did he not say it was a data center so that, if the public actually went to the one-stop shop site, we could see what he intended, but yet when he sent the letters, and not to all of the residents in the adjoining neighborhood, it was mentioned a data center, and actually to Enonoc. So does the CPC take any action or on applications in this particular instance, and when do you believe that it will come to the CPC so that the community could weigh in on this issue? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. Mr. Rivers, did you want to respond?
Sure. Thanks for the question. So far, we have not received an application. What we received was a request for an NPP list, which is a list of addresses of the surrounding neighborhood, and that is used by the applicant before they can even apply for anything. So they take that list, they may do the mail-outs, they have the meeting. My understanding is the meeting was recently, and then once they have the meeting, they can put together their application materials and submit them to the City Planning Commission. That has not happened yet. My understanding is that, obviously they are preparing to do that. The IZD would cut off their ability to submit that application.
Thank you very much. There are no further comment cards from the public. Mr. Scurlock, I don't have a card from you, but come on up.
I just wanted to offer one small thing. Seeing we have some great institutions here, and I actually went to computer technology at Loyola. I know Tulane has one, and I know that UNO at least had one. Most people don't realize at one point in time, the chancellor of UNO, his brother was head of NASA. Okay, that's years ago. But just think of the tie-in, and what I was trying to get across, one of the greatest infrastructures of the whole internet of the whole United States is actually in our backyard. It follows I-10, going East Coast, West Coast. It stops at the Michoud Assembly Center. The whole backbone of the internet was based on the connectivity of major government installations, including institutions of higher learning. And the one thing that's been consistent is in the process of talking about what is in the current books and legislation, it's about computers. The question is, what connects those computers together? It's data centers. It's no different than the infrastructure that they ripped up the streets of the French Quarter to put in cable, to put in gas, to put in energy. So I'm not saying they have issues. I didn't say that one time. Going in Southern California, traffic is their biggest concern. If it's done proper, if it's done with the will and the input of everybody, I suggest to give our city planners and yourself the better hand. Bring in the people that actually know, and the ones that are here in town are the stakeholders, and that's the ones at the technology departments at our major institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of the public for weighing in. We have several online comments. I will ask our amazing staff to please insert that into the record. With that, Vice President Willard is recognized.
Thank you, Councilman Hughes. So I think what we've discovered throughout the course of this conversation is there's clearly a need to define what a data center is. My friend Mr. Brown, I don't know if he's still here, but he mentioned two data centers that are currently in the city, and I was working with staff to pull information on them. One is Cogent, one is Fogo. They're both looks like they're zoned as office space. Cogent is categorized as a cellular and wireless telecommunications company and an internet service provider. And then Fogo is categorized as two different categories, computer and software store as well as marketing services and managed IT. And so, you know, for me, you can't label something as a data center if there's no definition of what a data center is. And you can't prohibit something if there's no definition to actually say that this is being prohibited. And so, Councilmember Hughes, I just want to thank you again, and Council President Morrell for bringing this forward. And I want to assure the public that we will be looking into all of this, and we'll continue working with staff, particularly for these two cases that Mr. Brown brought up. And moving forward, we ensure complete transparency. Your responses and your opinions have been received. And again, I want to thank you all for taking time out of your days to share your thoughts with us this morning.
Thank you, Vice President Willard. Thank you to all of my colleagues. Thank you once again to the public. Let me just say a few things in closing. And to our Executive Director Rivers, let me address the NPP process. You know, I've said this when I was a city planning commissioner. I just feel like the current NPP process is a check-the-box exercise. And I really think that we need to work to put some teeth into the NPP process. I think right now you have a lot of applicants that are, you know, they can hold a meeting at 11 a.m. While folks are at work. Mr. Ramsey held a meeting at 12 o'clock on a Saturday at a venue that closes early. And so I really think we need to put some teeth in the NPP process. I certainly look forward to working with you all to really ensure NPP's intent. Let me just say this to everyone who is watching. District E is open for business. We're often pegged as the community of no. We are not. But to developers that have awakened and decided that they're going to come into our community and tell us what's good for us and attempt to save us, that is not going to fly. It's a new day and a new way and new leadership and a new mayor and a new council. And we are committed to meaningful development in District E. But let me just put everyone on notice. If you don't want something in your own backyard, don't come put it in the backyards of my hardworking residents. To my friend, Jonathan Anthony Roberts, who is my friend, I don't just use that, facetiously, I mean that. This is not a Band-Aid approach. It's a parallel approach. This IZD is putting a moratorium in place because absent this moratorium, it is a possibility that a data center could come to fruition. And on that parallel track, we are directing the City Planning Commission to come up with definitions because absent definitions, it is a realistic possibility that data centers could come online in our residential neighborhoods. So we are using every tool at our disposal to protect the character of our neighborhoods and our city and to respond to the will of the people. And in closing, I also want to acknowledge Mayor Helena Moreno and her administration, who is on record with her position on this data center in New Orleans East. I thank her for her leadership and thank her for her partnership. With that, I will recognize Councilman King.
Thank you, Councilman Hughes. Mr. Rivers, what could be done to prevent data centers in other parts of the city, mainly Algiers or other parts that are rural, where it may be attractive to put this?
So I think step one is the IZD, which will put an immediate freeze on citywide, the way it's worded now. And then the second is for when we do the zoning docket to work with your office and to work with other council members to look at the issues in each district and identify whether or not there's any appropriate locations that they could be located.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman King. The board is clear with that. I will move adoption of the IZD, second by Vice President Willard. Members, please vote your machines. 5 yeas, no nays. The motion is adopted. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Make a motion to adjourn. Second by Councilman Harris. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Meeting's adjourned.
We have another, I think we have something else on there.
Yeah, we have ordinances on first read.
Yes, sorry about that.
Ordinance on first read. Ordinance, thank you. Ordinance on first reads. Ordinance calendar number 35,331 by council members Hughes, Morrell, Harris, Green, King, Willard, and...
Madam Clerk, I think we need to rescind the motion to adjourn. Is that correct?
Oh,
Okay, we need to move to rescind the vote to adjourn. I'll move, second by Councilmember King. All in favor, aye. All opposed, no. 5 yeas, no nays.
Go to first read.
okay. Ordinance on first reads. Ordinance calendar number 35,331 by council members Hughes, Morrell, Harris, Green, King, Willard, and McCarron by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 30,531 MCS as amended, entitled, an ordinance providing an operating budget of expenditures for the city of New Orleans for the year 2026 to move funds from city council to Department of Public Works for streetlight replacement and maintenance, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Members of the public, we're just waiting for another council member to come in so that we can resume business.
So who's... Okay. This was the vote they did before they rescinded. You got it?
Yeah.
This here? Okay. So they rescinded to... Is she rescinding the motion to adjourn? Because they have to first read.
Madam Clerk?
We could vote to rescind the adjourning vote.
I move to rescind the adjournment vote, seconded by Councilmember Hughes. All in favor?
And then we can vote to go to ordinance on first read.
Move to go to ordinances on first reading, seconded by Councilmember Hughes. All in favor?
Okay.
5 yeas.
Ordinance on first reads. Ordinance calendar number 35,331 by council members Hughes, Morrell, Harris, Green, King, Willard, and McCarron by request. An ordinance to amend ordinance number 30,531 MCS as amended, entitled An Ordinance Providing an Operating Budget of Expenditures for the City of New Orleans for the year 2026, to move funds from City Council to Department of Public Works for streetlight replacement and maintenance, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. That concludes the ordinances on first readings.
We can make a motion to adjourn.